Look out, Cloud. If you trip and fall, you'll land on a JPEG image. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough. It is time to play through actually one of my favorite early segments in the game, but also one of the ugliest. Um,
Favorite, okay.
I kind of like this section, yeah. It's
I don't. It drags. I didn't like this part that much.
I thought it was. I thought I had a.
I like the banter between the characters.
I thought I had a decent amount of exploration, relative to the areas surrounding it. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like I like the lore building and the character interaction. I just think the area itself is kind of a drab.
Do you regain MP in fights by hitting things?
No.
Okay, because your MP actually seems really limited from what I looked. Like, you can only heal 3 times.
It does go up over time during battle, I think, but not just from hitting things. No.
It slowly regenerates, but not
Okay.
enough to matter too much, unless it's like a very long, drawn out boss fight.
Slow enough that if you really need it, you're probably going to have to rely on ethers. But
Okay, because a lot of action RPGs will have you refill your special attack by doing normal attacks, so that's
It's
why I
it's one of those if you just by pure regen alone, you might get enough for another base fire or two over the course of a long fight, but nothing.
well, I mean,
substantial.
this game does do that, Ted, but it does it for the ATB gauge, not the MP.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
see.
I mean, your ATB does fill up
Dodge.
normally, but if you're in manual control of a character and you're using your normal attack, it will fill up faster for every hit. So yeah. Um, the the I mean, you don't have to rely so much on magic for offense unless you're fighting specific enemies that are resistant to physical attacks, because your special attacks, your character-specific skills, are generally enough to mount a strong offense, unless you're playing as Aerith, in which case...
I can see why in an action RPG they might want to tone down the spell casting aspects of it, because casting a spell in these kinds of games is almost always just the same as if you were playing a normal RPG. Like, you go into the menu and you cast fire and you watch your dude cast fire, versus they might want to emphasize the more action elements of it, because
Yeah,
that's why you made
in
an
general,
action RPG
you're
in the
not.
first place.
Yeah, in general, you're not going to be leaning on your spell casting for damage overall. You're mostly going to be looking for tactical opportunities to get off one good spell, and you're going to get that one good spell. And by God, if it isn't satisfying when you do, but still, um, it's it's not quite as it's not quite as frequent as the spell casting you'd be doing in the original FF7. Unless you're playing as Aerith, in which case, let her rip, because she is so good at spellcasting. That having been said, cargo elevator.
Perhaps too good.
uh, maybe a little bit. I mean, there are definitely situations where playing as Aerith is a disadvantage, because she's just not that good. But, you know, this is jumping ahead way ahead, but we've already mentioned that you fight Sephiroth in this game, and if you happen to have Aerith in your party during that fight, you can actually go toe-to-toe with Sephiroth with her and her little magic staff, and it's oddly ironic and satisfying to pull off.
She also has the best line of interaction against the dude as well.
Oh?
Well, it's not really so much directed at Sephiroth, but it's more like just her responding to Cloud saying something in regards to the battle.
What was it again?
It's like it's gonna be a tough battle. Like he's it's like Cloud says something to the effect of, like, it's gonna be a tough battle, and Aerith's like, yeah, so what? Screw him.
Aerith is a delight in this game, and I can't wait until we get to her parts. But, in any case... So, this was one screen in the original game, this entire section. It was...
One screen, a couple of tunnels.
Yeah, and it was one screen that was packed full of random monster encounters that you probably wouldn't even see because it was so short. So it's interesting that they expanded on this. That having been said, the JPEG image of the city below is
Midgar. It's only a JPEG.
Yes, it's so low res. What were they thinking? I don't get. I don't.
They're thinking that you should double dip on the PS5.
Oh god.
Ugh.
I hate that that's true, though. To be fair.
I mean, if they add enough content in, like some cross save stuff, then sure. But
I'd rather just update what they already have.
well, yes.
Which,
but
by the way, as of this commentary, they finally updated the damn game.
Are they re-releasing Final Fantasy VII on PS5 as its own?
not that we know of yet. They probably are.
Yeah, I think it's an inevitability.
It's an inevitability because it'd make the most sense to have what would probably be the entire 3 games on one system.
But it's backwards compatible already. Why bother?
Yeah, but it's for the aesthetics, Lewis. You want the 3 boxes to look nice together.
That's like, Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition with Virgil is coming out, and we're getting the Virgil content for the PS4 and PC versions like a month later anyway. And
Don't be a Final Fantasy VII regret.
you just
Be a Final Fantasy VII repurchase.
and you just know DMC5 is compatible with the PS5 anyway. So it's like the only reason to get the special edition is to get the Virgil content a little early.
Yes, but if you don't get it early, then you're not part of the conversation.
That looks more like what we need.
What?
Well, like there's a lot of. I'm trying to explain.
Sadly, for content producers, day one is key.
Well, not even just content producers. Honestly, it's a lot more fun to play a game when everybody else is playing it. Like, I remember when Breath of the Wild came out, and everybody was talking about that game all at the same time. It made that game a lot more fun because, especially with a game like that, because everybody's playthrough was so different, watching how everybody was going through it and seeing all the different stuff and whatever. I think that I would not have enjoyed that game as much if I was not playing it when everybody
This also
else
directly
was.
contributes to FOMO, though. That's the
Yeah, oh yes,
that's the
it
kicker.
absolutely does. And
Man, speak for
companies are
yourself.
playing-
I'd rather wait 6 months for all the patches to go through, and then play the game in my little socially isolated bubble without any of that noise.
Yeah, but you're socially awkward and a loner.
Yes, I am.
But
It also depends on the game. If we're talking about like Bethesda level games where it'll get significantly better later through patches, then sure. Not Nintendo, where the game is usually 95 to 99% well made to begin with.
And I
It's
feel
just
like
that little bit of extra
I feel like
polish.
Final Fantasy VII would normally fit into that kind of camp too, where everybody's talking about this. Like there was a huge conversation about this game when it first came out, especially with all the story change stuff that people was talking about.
yeah,
Oh yeah, everyone was complaining about how awful how awful the game was because it changed things, and I was having massive Metal Gear Solid 2 flashbacks the whole time.
in my circle, it was more like this is genius and I hate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't get anything quite that mixed. I felt like I was the only person on my own Twitter feed who actually liked this game, and it was like, oh.
I know. I mean, I like the game. It's just story-wise, again, agree with John and his group. This is genius, but I hate it.
There's a point where I feel as a content creator where I should be talking about this, or what everybody else usually does is like as a game is getting ready to release, you review something
Related to
in the same genre, yeah, or at least the
You
same.
gotta
series.
you gotta play that algorithm.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
exactly. And
yes.
there are times where I fortunately that just creeps into my mind. It's like, oh, Final Fantasy VII Remake's coming in. Let's talk about Kirby and the Amazing Bear, But there comes a point in time where it's like, if you're not really so amped up about like views or like subscription numbers, it's like just fucking do what you want,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for games that I'm not super passionate about, I'm totally like willing to wait the extra amount of time, especially to get it on sale or used for cheap. Which is why I tend to not play a lot of games on PlayStation right when they come out, because stuff used on PlayStation actually goes down in price, and that doesn't happen on Switch. So
That's what. Yeah, Nintendo. Did you hear Nintendo is still put a Paper Mario Sticker Star on sale for the Nintendo 3DS eShop? It's $20.
oh my gosh, is Mario Kart Wii still $40?
Probably.
Ah, Jesus Christ.
Oh, like digitally or just like in general?
No, Mario Kart Wii was never released digitally. It's just a physical release, and I'm pretty sure they're still selling it for $40.
It is still $50 on Amazon.
50? God,
Yeah.
they never gave it like a player's choice or whatever the hell the Wii version of that was. Oh wait, no, it was Nintendo Selects is what it was called.
Nintendo Select,
and it
yeah.
had the ugly red border all the way around the
Yeah,
stupid.
I never liked that.
Yeah, and I mean, I need to apologize to the GameCube Player's Choice yellow border because like I never liked how that looks, but I'll take that anytime over what the hell.
I always
did
thought
to
the
to
GameCube
Wii games.
player's choice label was a little bit more visually pleasing than the PlayStation 2 greatest hits.
The Xbox Platinum, I think, is probably the worst of the bunch, but that's just a personal.
Really,
opinion.
just a boring gray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it also does like the thing that the Nintendo Selects does, where it crops the image a whole lot. You know, like it shrinks it. And it's like I don't want to see.
Screw that, man.
I don't want a giant gray border making the box art smaller. You know, like,
Everybody should try to be on the same level as Donosara on the
Oh my God,
DS.
I was
I'm
about
the
to
only
bring
one
that
who's-
up.
Yeah.
Where's
the
the
worst
DS
box
box with
art
an image
of
of the
all
D?
time.
It's a DS box with an image of the DS box in it. It's like, why? Who thought that was a good idea? And why are they still employed?
Is that better or worse than the Okami box with the IGN logo on it, though?
Well, that was just a goof, I imagine, more than anything.
Yeah. This was deliberate.
Sometimes people do such monumentally stupid things with box design that it just makes you rail at the injustice of the world. How are these people the ones with college degrees and high-paying jobs, while other, obviously more talented people flip burgers at McDonald's?
So the answer to that question is that they got somebody who's not like an artist to do it because he was busy on his lunch break. He wasn't busy like for an hour, and they're like, "We need a box art now. Just do it in Photoshop. Go." And that guy's
Just,
like, "Okay,
just take
sure."
our normal box art, slap the platinum hips or whatever border around it, and call it a day.
Yeah, they didn't get a graduate a graduate student who's gotten their like masters in graphics design because that's too expensive. Is probably the answer. Oh wait, is there going to be a giant anime jump over the chasm? Oh man.
Nope.
Oh.
For that material.
Oh, what kind of Final Fantasy game is this? Bullshit. We can do motorcycle kung fu, but we can't jump over a gap that big. Man.
No.
They don't really do this all that much in the first episode, but sometimes you will spot something in the distance and it marks a discovery on your map to let you know that there's an item over there that you saw but couldn't get to, so you have to find some way around to that item. It's neat, and I wish they did it more. I hope they do it more in the probably more open worldy second episode. But, you know,
Well, the second episode I feel like is probably going to feel like a completely different game because, well, in the original Final Fantasy VII, it was a completely different game. That's when the game became basically a traditional RPG versus the very railroaded and linear, like Midgar section. So there's probably going to be more exploration. There's probably going to be a few things you can do in whatever order you want. Really, in terms of
it's just it's interesting that they introduced the discovery mechanic here because they don't really do much with it, and it feels like the reason they introduced it was to flesh it out later.
Yeah.
I imagine what's probably going to happen is we'll probably not like have a big open map area to wander about in. What I imagine what we'll probably have like 3/4 size these Midgar sections that you can do in any order you want and have like
Oh yeah, when I say more open worldy, I'm thinking more in terms of like The Witcher 3 rather than a Bethesda game where you're playing more in chunks of open world rather than one big open world. If that makes any sense.
right.
Yeah, it's interesting because honestly, in terms of structure, outside of the Midgar section, Final Fantasy VII is about as basic of an RPG as you get in terms of the way the story progresses and the way the game just progresses in general. You know, you have an overworld map, you walk around, you find a town, you do some stuff, you go to a dungeon, you get through the dungeon, you know, lather, rinse, repeat. There's some side quests. You get the airship and you can do some things in whatever order you want for a little while, and then you've got the final dungeon at the end where things go to a climax, you know. Like, I mean, I guess the reason why Final Fantasy VII was so successful wasn't necessarily because it was a huge gameplay game changer. It was more style, I think.
Well, graphical style for like the CG cutscenes and stuff, and to be kind of a little bit of the cynic about it, it was just in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It was also the first Final Fantasy that's Square really fucking pushed
Yeah.
in the West. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were commercials for Final Fantasy VI. There was a commercial for Final Fantasy VI. And I think I don't even think they plugged Final Fantasy IV. But 7 was the one they put a considerable amount of money on marketing. Like, it was everywhere before release.
Just show a bunch of FMVs on the commercials, and that sells a game, apparently.
But you know, that goes into what. But that was going into what Ryan was mentioning at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I
because
think they realized that the place it was much more skewing towards teenagers, which that kind of game would work better with than compared to, especially at the time, Nintendo's very kiddie attitude.
yeah. I mean,
And again, 3D graphics.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to say more. Everybody was really excited about that. So
yeah. So it effectively was just a well-made normal RPG that looked really nice for the time, and then that's all you really needed, you know, in order to get
Yeah.
a lot of people excited, you know.
Now we now have in-game canon confirmation that Barrett reads storybooks to Marlene, and he does the voices. That is such an adorable image.
Oh, he's a good dad then. If your dad didn't do the voices for you when he was reading you books, he copped out. I'm gonna say it right now. All right. And
it
if
was,
for some
it's the thing
reason
you guys shared
anybody,
about DMs who can't do impressions.
if anybody watching this has children and doesn't do the voices, step it up. Like they deserve better. All right.
Ah, man.
It's okay, guys. The floor mat will break our fall. That's the city below.
No, it's not.
It looks all soft and fuzzy.
And you know, this isn't even the only part of the game where you can see the city below as a JPEG.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a common video game trick, though, is to use an image.
Yes,
as a
but
background.
it's usually not this obvious though.
Well, I mean, like, there are games with some low-res skyboxes, I suppose, but usually when there's an image showing you scenery, it looks better than this. For example, Final Fantasy XIII did background imagery for scenery a lot better than this.
Well, Final Fantasy XIII was very much a game where they focused on graphics much more than.
And this isn't? But,
I mean, okay, yes, they did focus on graphics a lot here, but
the thing is,
like-
the image should be the easiest thing to get right. Really.
well, I mean, there's some scale, like especially when you're like supposed to be above the town here.
The scaling in
there's-
perspective is very hard to do to make it look not fuzzy, ballooned up to that scale.
because at certain angles you can see certain sides of things that you're not supposed to see.
I mean, in
and
terms
stuff
of
like that.
optimization, it should be the least technically intensive thing on screen. So I really don't understand why it's as low res as it is.
Probably to save resources or RAM or whatever the hell tech thing it is, because the lower res the images, the more tech space computer wizard they can put on the other stuff.
Yeah, that's true, but like they could go at least a few pixel counts higher than what they went with. So that
I guess they were also banking on the fact that you're not going to be looking directly down most of the time. Like, you don't, when you're playing the game normally, you don't really tend to see the city below for too long. Like, I guess, like, right here, this is the only time within the past 2 minutes or so where we even caught a glimpse of it because you were playing the game normally, and that was only for 10 seconds as you were walking down.
Well, yeah, but that's because I've already played through this area and I know where I'm going. If you're playing through it blind, you're swinging the camera around like a madman. You're always looking at that goddamn skybox.
These are really impressive map paintings.
Um,
That's what I'm reminded of. I'm reminded of map paintings from like old films.
Especially
Especially near the tail end of this game, where I think we'll get the most egregious example.
you know,
Barrett, you're the heaviest one here.
It's like looking at Tim Burton's Gotham City.
Cloud City.
Oh, shit.
You know, it would have been a really funny gag if they just made Cloud's hair not move with the wind because of all of the hair gel he has to keep in it in order to get that hairstyle.
Yeah, but you know, hair physics are a major draw of the graphics this generation because we can finally do
Hair
them.
physics, well, we don't give a shit if it clips through shit.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that drives me nuts. Is like, man, this coat looks really great. It's got my ponytail going through the fucking collar.
Well, I mean, the few games last generation that could do hair physics were, you know, it was pretty pleasing to look at, like Fable 3, for example, where that one character has the really bouncy, bobbing, curly hair, and whenever she walks anywhere, it's just bouncing all over the place, and it's like, wow, graphics. But this generation, we can do hair every which way, and it's amazing. It's like they have a whole hair and beard growing system in The Witcher 3, and a barber shop to go with it, and it's great. But
I gotta imagine why they would make that kind of thing a priority when nobody would care. Though, like, I don't care how much my Witcher's hair grows.
It's one of
over
those
time.
things where it may not be super beneficial to that one particular game, but once you make it, you can apply it to like all your games
Yeah.
going forward.
yeah, in any case, in an immersive and extremely long RPG like The Witcher 3, having that kind of time-sensitive thing is something that it's a mark of ambition, really. I remember when Fable 1 was, you know, still not a game yet, and why did I say Ted? Peter Molyneux was mouthing off about the things.
Hey, what? Okay, hold on a moment. I need to know why you're Freudian slipping me with Peter Molyneux, because I'm concerned
Basically
about
the same
this.
pronunciation. Ted Peter Molyneux.
My brother's name
come
is
on.
Peter.
When Molyneux was mouthing
Peter.
off about the things he wanted to do for that game, one of the things he wanted to do was trees that grow in real time.
Huh?
There's absolutely no practical gameplay reason to have trees that grow in real time, unless you're playing something like Stardew Valley. Okay? But he wanted to have trees in his fantasy world that would grow in real time. Obviously, he never did that. But he did want to. So having a beard that'll grow in real time, or hair that will get longer as you play the game, is an interesting thing, you know?
Remember in Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes when ice cubes, or was it 2 that had
It was 2.
ice cubes that melted in real time?
Yes.
Well, the environmental fiddling that you could do in Metal Gear Solid 2 was unnecessarily detailed. There was so much breakable shit.
Kojima in a nutshell.
I guess for me, it's just I can understand wanting those kinds of details in a specific kind of game, or maybe not necessarily that they would be important, but they could add to the atmosphere. Like, for example, I can imagine, let's say you're playing a game where you're stranded on a desert island, right? Where maybe having hair and a beard that grows over time could naturally, like, play into the fact that you've been here for 6 months and now you've got a beard that goes down to your chest or whatever. Versus in a game like The Witcher 3, time does pass in that, but I guess it doesn't, I don't feel like it necessarily would add that much to the experience overall. I don't
Well,
know.
again, think of it this way: if you make an engine and graphical fidelity capable of rendering any level of beard that you can realistically grow, when you make another game, 4 years down the line, and character B has a beard, you can just plop that into your engine and it'll work.
Oh yeah. So I totally understand the idea of making a hair physics engine that would work for beards or hair or whatever at different lengths. I guess I just don't get why. Okay, I guess so, but
It's not really a selling point for me. Competent beer physics.
It's just one of those. If you went ahead and made it, you might as well use it as part of like a way to like we're a game so detailed and cool.
Well, the other thing is that in that specific genre, Western RPGs in particular, those little immersive elements are a major draw. Like, people like being able to do things that may not necessarily be fun, but are things that your character would do and have to deal with. It sort of draws players into the game. For example, Fallout New Vegas has a completely optional mode that you can turn on to enable hunger and dehydration as part of the adventure.
you know, I didn't really care for the little mini game where you have to trim the pubes on your character, but it really did add to that immersion.
Hello, Cyberpunk.
Wait, hold the phone.
No, they have customizable groin and private options.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my
probably not
God.
going to make it into the console release.
It's the future, Ted. Come on.
Well, the entire point of Cyberpunk is that you've altered your body to be all mechanical and whatever the hell you want it to
Yeah,
be.
but I don't need to actively in my character selection screen have a metallic dong. Like, that's not something that I need to...
Well,
I'd
then
say
you can
you're a coward.
skip over that part and just leave it at default.
Or machine gun boobies that have,
How did I
like,
miss
Gatling
those,
gun
Alright,
attachments on
excuse you. Everyone wants an Austin Powers game. I'm just surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, I think there
Yeah,
is an
it was
Austin Powers
called-
game on
yeah,
my
it was-
Game Boy Color.
A good
Hold on.
one, thank
Yeah.
you.
We also had one on the PS1. It was called Gax Enter the
I mean, we got Sean Connery, we got virtual Sean Connery for James Bond, but we haven't had Mike Myers as Austin Powers and Dr. Evil yet. Come on.
What we really need to do is before Alex Trebek leaves the show is have another version of Jeopardy on like consoles and Switch and stuff. This has the typical party game thing and have Sean Connery be, I guess, unlockable character.
Yeah, but that would up the rating from E to N immediately.
Yeah, but that's what would make it great.
No effort.
Speaking of Sean Connery, why haven't they made a next-gen Highlander game yet?
Oh,
Because
man. Well, I've always
Highlander
been
is an
asking.
outdated franchise that I don't think anybody cares about.
Oh, come
They've tried to
on.
reboot it a couple of times, and it's
So
never
there's someone
worked.
that's listening to this video. It's like, oh, finally.
I know Highlander has had some rough patches over its lifespan, but I think
They were making movies into the 2000s.
Highlander's transition to 3D was a rough time.
yes. Yes, it
yeah,
was.
like, hold on, they might still be making Highlander movies. Let's go to the Google machine.
I mean, the
and-
problem with the Highlander game is that every enemy you kill would have to have the same beheading animation because that's the only way you can kill them.
There's a Highlander. Oh, there's a Highlander novel called Highlander: An Evening at Joe's.
My favorite mythical tale.
There was a Highlander movie as recent as 2007. So
Well, recent, that was 13 years.
Oh,
Pretty
there was
recent, that's
going to
13
be
years
a
ago.
Highlander video game for the PS3 and Xbox 360. It was canceled in 2010.
Also, though, a game in which you can only defeat enemies in a certain way or in a limited number of ways isn't actually unheard of, because that was basically the gimmick of the first Soul Reaver game, where all the enemies were vampires, so you had to do something that would defeat their vampire healing. So you would basically have to find a torch or a campfire or some sunlight or a pool of conveniently placed water or some spikes on the wall, if you wanted to be really sadistic.
Don't they have to be wooden spikes specifically, though? I thought that metal spikes.
No,
were
it just
like
it just
that.
needed to impale them so that it stopped the wound from closing long enough for you to steal their
Wooden
soul.
sticks are just easier.
I think my favorite joke regarding the spike thing is an anime where like monster girls are real and stuff, and not like the horny kind.
Oh,
But
okay.
so there was a vampire girl, so the guy's like interviewing her. It's like, oh, so it's like you don't like garlic, right? It's like it just smells too much. It's just like it's like normal stuff. And so he says, what about getting spike impaled in your chest? It's like, yeah, that'd probably kill me. I imagine it'd kill everyone.
But yeah, in
Not
Soul
wrong.
Reaver, you had to disable the vampire's body long enough to suck up their soul, and if you failed to do that, they would come back as an even worse vampire. Ugh. But
I mean,
Vampire
being
2.
a vampire is kind of a raw deal. It's like, okay, you're technically immortal, but you can still be killed by most of the stuff that kills normal people, and also garlic. So
that is
imagine never being able to have garlic bread or Italian cooking ever again.
Hey, but if you're already an introvert, now you have even more
that is
reason not to go
absolutely
outside.
not the way the Legacy of Kain vampires work, though. So,
Have you ever seen What We Do in the Shadows?
no.
But we do commentary.
It's a movie. It's done by Taika Waititi, who did Thor Ragnarok, and it's basically just vampires living in like New Zealand, and they just fuck around the entire time. Like they're not like going out and being evil. They just like live in an apartment, and one of their roommates is like a classic Nosferatu vampire, and his name is Peter, spelt with a Y.
This sounds like an actual Sims 4 expansion DLC.
It basically is like the Sims version of the vampires. It's hilarious. It's one of my favorite movies. So if you liked Thor Ragnarok,
They actually did that DLC expansion.
yeah, I know. It basically is The Sims.
Oh, okay.
But this movie came out in like 2008, I think. I mean, The Sims probably had vampires by that point, but it's just a really good movie. And then there's like an enemy tribe of werewolves that are just like really overly polite to them, and just like,
I was gonna
hey, man,
say,
we're werewolves, not swearwolves.
I was gonna say, are they always walking around shirtless and stuff?
No, they run into the vampires, and then they start like going at each other, almost like it's West Side City, except without dancing. It's just a really good movie, and you should watch it. It's one of those things where it's a comedy, so the only way I could really explain why it's so good to you is to just tell you all of the jokes, which then makes the movie not funny when you actually go and watch it. AKA why I hate Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
You should try Life of Brian then.
Life of Brian was good, yeah.
I think I've got probably half the jokes of that one spoiled to me, so I might only hate half of it, which is an improvement.
Well, you know, if you remember them all.
Look, for everybody who's ever said, like, oh, it's a witch to me for my entire goddamn... Especially since I was friends with all the theater's kids in high school who are all obsessed with
You're
it.
never going to unhear the Monty Python spoilers because people won't let you unhear them. But not as many
they
people
won't.
quote Life of Brian
Nearly
nearly as often. Like, maybe they'll sing the Bright Side of Life song to you a little too often, and you'll remember that. But still, the rest of it, you should be fine.
We'll see. I'm also just a little bitter.
Although,
about it,
if you want to watch some, I mean, Monty Python does more than just the movies. They do some excellent skits. Get a skit collection.
All their famous skits have been quoted to hell and back too, though.
Yeah, like the cake or death one, the silly walking one.
Spanish
they-
Inquisition.
Yeah.
Well, I know the Spanish Inquisition one, but I don't really remember the other two.
The barber who wants to be a chimney sweep.
Oh, actually, I don't think I've heard that one.
Oh no, sorry, it's the he wants to be a barber who wants to be a lumberjack in British Columbia.
Oh wait, no, yeah, I know that one.
Basically, just play a skit collection and have at it. You'll have a fun time. You might run into one that you've had spoiled to you before, but
I came in here for an argument. I thought this is abuse.
what?
Oh yeah, that one's been the whole thing of that one. I heard that one too.
Man, you know you've made it when you know you've made it as a comedy troupe when everyone is quoting you so often that nobody finds you funny anymore.
You see, the sad thing is that I'm a total hypocrite because I've probably ruined Homestar Runner for so many people because I'll do nothing but quote Homestar Runner sometimes to the point where people probably already know all of the good quotes and all the good scenes from that, and they're probably like, this isn't funny because you already said all the jokes. And it's just like, yeah, but fuck Monty Python.
Okay. Well, on the subject of comedy, I really need to watch Austin Powers again sometime soon. I keep saying
I
that,
haven't
but-
watched Austin Powers since I was 16 years old. My brothers were in a really big phase a couple of years back where they watched like the entire series back to back, and I don't know why I didn't watch it with them. I probably was just like hiding in my room being antisocial. if I had to guess.
Oh,
But-
where they're going through their teenage we can watch these movies now thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Although my mom was definitely way less strict on what they could watch as opposed to what I could watch.
That's older sibling syndrome.
Yeah, they could watch rated R movies when they were 15, but no, I couldn't watch. I think I was like 19 before I could watch The Matrix. It was ugh.
What?
What the fuck?
So, we're going to get our first official summoning materia. Well, if you don't count the DLC summoning that I already used earlier.
Or the Ifrit that you had because
The game gave you.
Oh, well, the game just gave me that, but this is the first one that you can get optionally, I mean.
I think this is the only one that you find like out in the world too.
Yeah, it is the only one that you find out in the world. The rest of them are tied to the VR missions. But the Chocomog materia is over here for some reason, hidden behind this puzzle, this sort of timer puzzle. Well, I say puzzle loosely because there isn't really a good word for it, but okay, you turn off the fans, right? And you walk through this doorway and it sets off a maintenance timer. And you have to beat these monsters quickly enough to reach the other panel on the other side of this room before the timer runs out. And if you do that, you can get in behind the fans and pick up Chocomog.
you can't just ignore them.
No, because the door it's like a security clearance thing. But
Yeah, it recognizes the biohazard.
also, I do recommend instead just purposely fail this first time. When you go in the next time, it'll give you an extra 30 seconds, I believe.
I think it gives you more time. I also think the monsters are easier the second time.
Yes.
But, you know, I beat it the first time here because I'm just that good. So, yeah. I mean, I sure as hell didn't beat it the first time I tried, but I beat it the first time on recording, and that's what counts, right?
Yeah. Well, you also know what you're doing. So.
You're also very clearly
no.
taking advantage of the time pausing. I can
I'm
tell.
just saying, see some splice footage here and there. Check the audio wavelengths.
Come on.
You can tell by the
Yep,
frames.
yeah, like right there.
Oh, you
That's
can
not it.
see that there was a 2 in one frame and it turned into a 6 in a different frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shaving those microseconds.
That's just Final Fantasy and its obsession with flooding the screen with numbers.
Big numbers mean big damage.
You know,
Yes.
in Final Fantasy XIII, and I know I keep bringing the game up, but bear with me, it really bothered me that they insisted on making the damage numbers go up so high because so many damage numbers come up on screen so frequently that there's no way to read any of them.
That's just me whenever I look at a Final Fantasy XIV screenshot. I can't understand whatever the hell is going on. And then there's so many
I
glowing
should show you the image of like every MMO HUD combined into one. It's just a mess of like tiles and buttons and numbers and shit.
Xenoblade Chronicles actually, and from what I've seen of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, is worse about this. It has a similar problem where it's just a mess.
For 14 specifically, I had to turn off. I don't think you can turn off numbers, but you can turn off other parties' battle effects because after a while,
You start
what's
there's
happening?
there's so much flashing light across the screen you can barely see the AoE
Yeah.
markers.
Yes.
It's like the visual version of the THX logo. The audience is now blind.
But in any case, we now have Chocobo. We now have Chocobo and Moogle, which is an okay summon. It's also a medium small summon, so like you might not be able to use it in an enclosed room like this. But if you're fighting enemies in a larger area, you'll generally be able to summon it.
Was it still one elemental in remake?
Yes.
It wasn't.
Yes, I think so. I think it's the only wind elemental thing in this entire episode too.
Oh no, you have arrow.